What is up, everybody? My name is Felix, and today I'm going to be bringing you a tutorial on something one of my subscribers asked me about, and they said, can you make a tutorial on a R&B type beat that has a little bit of like trap influence? And so that's what I'm kind of going to be doing today, but I'm more going to be showing you how to make like an old school hip-hop beat, because I was researching and I don't know very much about R&B at all. I don't really listen to R&B, and I'm sorry to anyone who that may offend, but yeah, I don't really listen to R&B, so I had to research a little bit, but I found out that the structure of an R&B beat is very similar to an old school hip-hop beat, and so I'll be teaching you kind of how to make an old school hip-hop beat, and teaching you some of the things I learned while researching R&B. So yeah, anybody who's never used the program before will be able to do this. This is a very easy tutorial to follow. Just stick with me and you should be fine. So, the first step that we want to do, I want to go into my samples, and I'm going to be using all stock LMMS sounds. So basically, that means the sounds that are already in LMMS. So, ignore all this stuff up here. You should have most or all of this down here. And the thing you want to keep in mind is that for R&B and old school hip-hop, you want to have, because the two kind of mesh into each other. R&B has kind of, I don't want to say copied or stolen, but they've kind of taken a little bit from old school hip-hop, because the style of beat, like the way you make it, is very similar. Oh yeah, I forgot, set your tempo to around maybe 90 to like 84-ish, maybe like 95. 95 is probably the highest you should go with it, but I'm gonna stick around 90 just because that's better. That's the first thing you want to do. The next thing you want to do is grab your drums. But the thing you want to keep in mind is that you want to have very real sounding instruments. Like, you don't want to have a whole lot of synth sounds with trap. You have a lot of synthesized sounds. Synthesized just means played on a computer, or made on a computer. So this pack right here just says drums. Go in there, and you'll have all these very real sounding instruments like this. All these instruments are very real sounding, like they're played on an actual drum kit. And that's another thing you want to keep in mind when you're making this beat, is that you want to imagine that with the drum line, that's what we're going to build first, and then we're going to go on to the melody. You want to imagine that you're an actual drummer. You want to imagine that you're playing the drums yourself. Basically, that's what I like to think of. So we're going to grab a snare. We're going to grab snare 6, and then we're going to grab this hi-hat, this closed hi-hat 2, and then we're going to grab this hip-hop kick, and I'm going to grab a shaker. The shaker's optional, but it'll sound pretty cool. We're going to have shaker 3, and then I'm going to get an open hi-hat as well. That one sounds alright. Alright, so we're going to build the drum line first. Then we're going to move on to the instruments, like I said. First thing you want to do, you're going to go up here to this. I'm going to actually just make this full screen so you can see it a lot better. Up here, you want to go to this top right corner, and you want to hit this 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And now, since we're producing it, this is a good time to teach you about what full time and double time is. Basically, full time is around anywhere from like maybe 65 to like 100, and maybe even a little higher depending on how you want it to go. Usually, don't quote me on this because sometimes pop beats are different. If you want me to give you a pop beat tutorial, let me know in the comments below. But a general rule is that when you're making a full-time beat, which is, like I said, anywhere from like around 60 to 100 tempo, the snares go right. Whoops. The snares go right here. So basically, this is a bar. After every 4 little squares, those 4 beats make up a bar. So yeah, basically, after every second bar, there is a snare on the first beat. It's just like this, and I'll play it for you to see how it sounds. So already you're kind of getting that kind of groovy. I just said the word groovy. I know. You want to get that groovy kind of rhythm going on. If it's too slow, you're gonna get kind of something like this. It's really drawn out, but there's circumstances where you'll use something like that, and if you want to have like a more like feel, whatever. Let's stick to the topic here. So the way I'm gonna do it today, in my last tutorial, I did each thing individually, but now I'm gonna do it all in one beat and bassline editor, and then I'm just gonna copy and paste it, or cut and paste out certain instruments and add them to the next bar or next bassline editor here, because I want to build off each other instrument, because I don't want to put like a kick in the same place as a snare. This will make it a lot easier for beginners. So yeah, I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to put this kick next to the snare so that they line up a little bit. So yeah, we're going to build the kick off of the snare. So you want to go in. The big thing about old school hip hop and R&B is that it's basically, and with any music, I should have said any music, and I said this in my last tutorial too. Any music, you cater it to the way you like it to sound. So if you have a melody in your head, you just want to play with this bassline editor until you get that melody in your head. Because so many different beats are different. Hip-hop varies in so many different ways. Every beat is different in some way. R&B, I was researching, varies in so many different ways. Every song is different, and that's what makes music unique. So, if you have a beat going on in your head, you want to replicate that beat. So maybe you're like beatboxing or whatever. You want to recreate that beat that you're thinking of. If you don't have any ideas, I'll do a couple different things to spark some ideas. So there's basically kind of two different ways that I noticed, even while researching other people's tutorials. People either will do like very little amount of kicks or a lot of kicks. And there's so many different ways you can do it, but I'll show you a couple here. That right there, what you just heard, Drake used that in one of his songs. That was kind of had more of an R&B feel. The Drake song that I'm referring to is called From Time. And he used a beat like that throughout the whole thing. And it sounded super cool, and it was stuck in my head for like a bunch of days, but off topic. Basically, you could do like that, something like this, and then just replicate it throughout the whole thing. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Or you could kind of just play around with the kicks and just toss a bunch in there and see how it sounds. That's what I would recommend you do. Just kind of toss in a bunch of kicks and maybe add a snare variation here and there too. But yeah, just look, I'm not even listening to it, and then I'm just going to place a bunch down. And this is kind of the method that I will use. I'll just kind of place a bunch of kicks down, and then I'll listen to it and be like, oh, that doesn't sound right, so I'll change it a little bit. This is way different from if you're producing in double time. And double time is basically when you have anywhere above kind of, let's say, 105 usually is above double time, or is double time. Above 105, and sometimes even goes up to like 170. Double time and full time, it's kind of complicated because the style changes, like drastically changes, and the main thing you want to keep in mind is that double time and full time is all about and kind of the vibe that it gives off. It's actually a really complicated subject, and I'm not going to get into it right now because it's beyond the scope of the video. It's just complicated. Don't worry about it. If you're a beginner, definitely don't worry about it. Just put it to 90. It should be good. But yeah, what I like to do, just place a bunch of kicks down, see how it sounds. So right there, I didn't like how this triple kick sounded. So I'm gonna go here, and then just put another one of these, and then put a double in there. See how that sounds. Okay, so I pretty much like how that sounds. As you might have saw that I arrange some stuff down here, but you just want to arrange it to fit your kind of style, fit your ear, whatever you want to say. So now that we have the snare and the kick, another thing you can do is add in a snare here and there, like do something like this. So a lot of times if I'm making a hip-hop, old school hip-hop beat, I'll actually do that, put in an extra snare. So if you like how that sounds, go ahead, right ahead and do it. But if you don't, obviously just don't do it. Like I said, I can't stress this enough. Whenever you're making music, just cater it to the way you like it to sound. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually add in the closed hi-hats. This is where double time and full time, it makes a big difference in the style. Because if you'll notice, making a trap beat, which is double time, 140 is double time, modern hip-hop sounds faster because the hi-hats are actually the same as an old school beat. So it's kind of confusing, but hopefully like some of you will be able to wrap your head around it. But yeah, so it's the same as a trap beat. You just want to place it every other beat, basically. The closed hi-hats. So one thing you want to do, like I said, imagine that you're a drummer and you're playing all the drums. You want to go into the piano roll. What you want to do is every other hit, you want to turn down the volume of this hi-hat. Basically just put it like, it can be staggered because obviously if you're really playing the drums, not every hit is going to be the same. So you just want to bring down every other one. It's a little time consuming. Whoops. It's a little time consuming, but it'll make it sound really cool. So yeah, as you can hear, it kind of has that little jumpy effect, and it gives it a lot more groove. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So as you can hear, it adds a lot more to the beat, and it just sounds a lot cooler. So the next thing I'm going to move on to is something that I wish I would have taken notice of a lot sooner, and that's open hi-hats. I didn't realize how much of a world of difference they can actually make, but they can actually make your beats sound a lot more, just give them a lot more groove, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do a quick hi-hat pattern with the open hi-hats, and I'll show you how much more groove it adds to it. Alright, so I added a quick little hi-hat pattern with the open hats, and let me show you how much more groove it adds to it and how much more like swing it adds to it. I think you might be surprised. So as you can hear, if you paid attention, you could hear that little hi-hat in there, the open hat. So yeah, just like that, you could hear it just adds a little bit more bounce. It's hard to explain, but you can. I'm sure you guys can hear it. Just the more bounce that it adds to it. Basically, that's the whole thing completed. You could add some shakers in there if you wanted to. Let me just draw in a quick shaker pattern, so you can see like what one might look like. So I just added in a little bit of shakers in there. Let me play it for you, and you can hear how it sounds, and you might like it or you might not. Some producers like using a lot of percussion, some producers don't like using percussion at all. It just depends on your style and what you think sounds good, so I'll play it for you. So as you can hear, it just adds a little bit more to it, adds a little more groove, a little more bounce. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add this whole bass line in. So I'm going to show you how to, like let's say if you want each drum instrument to come in different sections. Like let's say you wanted the kick to be here, and then you wanted the snare to come in here, and then you wanted the shakers to come in here, wanted the open hats to come in here, and then all like culminate into one thing. I will show you how to do that. So what you would do, you would just go, you just right click on, let's say, the snare, and then you would go to copy, and then you would say copy, and then here, this button, as you can see, says add beat and bassline. You click on it, and then you would right click again on where the snare is, and then you click paste, and then once you have that, that's your full snare pattern. And then you would click on this arrow, go back to beat and bassline 0, because that's the one where all your instruments are, and then you'd right click again on the snare, and then just go to clear all notes. And now you don't have the snare here anymore, but it's going to be right here. So you have the snare here. What you would do now is just add the snare in here. So now you have one instrument in one bass line. And then if you want to get each instrument in a different bass line, you would just do the exact same thing. I'll go through it one more time so you can see. Right click, copy, add a new beat and bass line, beat/bass line, and then you go paste, and then you'd go back to the one it was in, right click, clear all notes, and then you're good. And then you just go back here and add it in. Oh, also, if you want this to loop, what you do, you press this little bow tie thing, and then you right click where you want it to loop at, where you want the end to be, and it'll go there. So now I have a 4-bar loop of this whole thing. So that is how you separate each drum thing into, or each instrument, if you will, into a different beat and bass line, so that you can bring them in as you want to and add some variation to your song. Now that we have all the drums done, I'm going to show you kind of a popular pattern that happens a lot in R&B. For old school hip hop, it's kind of similar, depending on which beat. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I'm going to show you kind of a basic thing that you would do. A basic thing that you would do is get a piano and then get a synth. And then you have a piano and a synth, and then pretty much that's what you would use throughout the whole song. I have this 25 piano sound fonts. I'm going to see if I can find a preset sound. So, the one I've chosen, I went here to my presets, and then went to Zin Add Sub Effects, and you go down, and you find the one that says Synth Piano, and then I grabbed this Synth Piano too, and basically that's the piano that I'm going to use. Now I need an actual synth, so I grabbed this Synth Piano, like I said, and then I grabbed this Pulse Pad 2, which is in the same area, but it's just right above the Synth Piano in synths. And so yeah, that's all you gotta get, and pretty much that's gonna be like the whole thing, the whole two instruments. I just turned both of these down. A lot of times what you'll hear is chords, and then you'll hear like some synth stabs here and there. So but like I said, it varies from song to song. That's what makes music music, and it depends on all what you like to hear. So yes, that's that, and that's my whole shtick that I always say. Cater the music to what you want to hear. But I'm gonna do using just all major chords. And if you don't know the major and minor scales, major is these white notes, minor is these black notes. And normally, major notes are kind of happier, associated with like happier sounding sounds, and minor are associated with more like sad, dramatic sounds. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. That's a major chord, and now I'm going to play a minor chord, and you'll see the drastic difference. So obviously you can hear it's a totally different vibe when you're using minor chords than you are using major chords. And I know I said in my last tutorial video just to never use the black keys, which are minor chords. or minor notes or whatever. I was being like really like, you can never do this, but the only way that you can make innovative new music is to try different things. So ignore what I said last time. But what I was going to say was, you should never mix the white and black notes unless you want a creepy sound. And I'll show you what I mean by that. You can kind of hear how it sounds a little creepy, like a little off kilter, or whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it. It sounds a little like off kilter. So if you're going for a sound like that, like 21 Savage does that a lot in his beats, keep that in mind. But I'm going to be, just for the sake of the tutorial, I'll use all major chords, like I was saying before I went on a whole rant. So yeah, I'm going to be using all major chords. And I'm just going to drop a quick melody. And like I said before, cater the music to how you want it to sound. But I'm going to just do a little, like, simple pattern with the piano. And I'll get back to you. So, basically, this is the whole melody. It's pretty simple. You can copy it pretty easily. It looks intimidating, but it's literally just, like, half of a bar, and then, like, it gets cut up here, and there's, like, a couple notes played here. So, it's not that hard. This is basically how it turned out. It's also played in a higher octave, if you notice. These are octaves from this C to this C is an octave. So yeah, it's, see how it says C6, C5. All of these notes are like C1. It doesn't really matter, but it stops at G. If you didn't know that, the notes on the piano and the notes in general in music, it stops at G, and then it goes right back to A. So basically, yeah, it's the melody's pitched in a higher octave because it sounds lighter and airier than if it was pitched using this lower set of notes here. Here, I'll play it for you and you can hear how it sounds. So basically that's how it sounds. As you can hear, it sounds kind of more old school. You almost want your melody to sound like cheesy, like it's from a 70s romantic film or something. That's how I picture the melody when I make it, which is really weird to say that, but it's true. So yeah, that's an interesting way to think. But yeah, hopefully it helps you kind of get a vibe. That's what basically in music, you want to just have a vibe when you make a song. That's one of the most important parts, is just making a vibe. So this is how it sounds with the whole song. So as you can hear, once you put in the melody, it starts sounding more old school, more like soul kind of feeling. I shouldn't have said soul because there's probably going to be people in the comments being like, oh, that's not soul. I don't care. Next, what you want to do is you want to add this pulse pad thing, which is the synth sound. You just want to kind of draw in a little synth pattern. And I think I might have showed you this in the last trap beat tutorial, that you need to copy the other thing and bring it in so that you can see what notes you used. You don't need to do that. If you use all of the same scale, like if you use the major scale, which I said before is just all these white notes, if you just use all the white notes in the other melody, just use all the white notes in this melody. This is just something I've learned from beat making. A lot of people might tell you differently, like, oh no, you need to start with the same note that you use in the other one. It'll sound better. But from my experience, it doesn't matter what you do. So yeah, I'm just going to draw in a quick synth melody. Alright, so basically this is the synth melody. It isn't very complicated at all. Like I said, it's kind of the same with the other one. Like I said in the beginning, anybody who hasn't used any sort of software before will be able to do this. Like I said, when you're making the synth melody, just use all the same chords that you, or all the same notes that you used before. So that would be the minor or major scale. So that's what I did. And you'll notice that if you do that, your melody, if you use two different melodies, they'll fit really well together because you used all the same chords. And if you just play the same chords together, they just work in harmony with each other. I didn't pick the best synth sound for this. I'm sure I could find a better one if I looked for longer, but I just found this one right off the bat, and I was like, hey, I'll just use it. So, yeah, this is how it sounds on its own. So basically that's how the synth melody goes, and it's pretty simple. So I mixed it a little bit. Basically mixing, when I say mixing, it means like adjusting the volumes, and when you get more advanced, it also means putting in equalizers to bring out certain frequencies, but that's really way out of the scope of the video. This is how it looks. I made it in a different beat and bassline editor, which basically all you need to do is press add beat slash bassline here, and it'll add a different one. So yeah, that's that. And then I added to the song, and it sounds like this. And basically this is the whole song done. So this is how it sounds as a whole beat. So basically that's the entire beat done. I'll just do a quick little arrangement thing for you guys so that you have some idea of how to arrange it. Depending on what style you're using, a lot of old school hip-hop will have drum breaks where they'll just have the melody play for a little bit and then they'll have the drums come in. So that's what I'm gonna be doing here, just adding a couple of drum breaks. This is the whole beat done. So I'll play it for you guys in a second. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned something. I hope you're now able to make your own beats that are even better than mine, because this beat wasn't very good. If you're making a real beat, you should spend a lot more time on it than I did with this one. But overall, I think it sounds pretty good, and I hope your guys' sounds even better. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, and tell me if I should do more of these. Leave some suggestions in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Adios.